the gravesite of John Ball, born in 1794, lived to the ripe old age of 90, died here in Grand Rapids. He was born in upstate New York, where he attended Dartmouth College, graduating in 1820, studied law there, then departed on a sea voyage that was shipwrecked off the Georgia coast. He survived the shipwreck, swam 6 miles to shore, took a job as a teacher in the immediate area, then returned to upstate New York a few years after that, took over the factory, the oilcloth factory of his sister's husband, who had died in a fire, brought it back to profitability, and then decided he wanted a journey. And so he found someone else to look after the factory and began a journey across the United States at a time when there were no trains, there were no ships, and almost all of it was on horseback or on foot. He ultimately came to Fort Vancouver on the Pacific coast, where he taught in the first school in the Oregon Territory, planted the first wheat crop there. When the wheat was ripe, he harvested it and sold it for a ticket that would take him out into the Pacific, where he landed at the Sandwich Islands that we know today as Hawaii. There, a member of his graduating class from Dartmouth was in service to the last king of Hawaii, Kamehameha II, and John was introduced to him. Stayed there for 3 or 4 months and then got the itch again. Booked passage on a whaler that took him to Tahiti and across to the Isthmus of Panama, where he crossed and then took another ship into Brazil, into Rio de Janeiro, where he met up with the commander of an American naval vessel there, David Farragut, later Admiral David Farragut. Ball's ability to hook up with people of amazing notoriety is just unparalleled in the history of Grand Rapids. Anyway, all of that was before he came to Grand Rapids. He went back to New York. He was employed by some investors who had bought land, timberland, in the state of Michigan, and needed to have someone survey it and map it, excuse me, which Ball did. And he came here, surveyed the area around Grand Rapids, and decided this is the place he would stay. And that's what he did. Later on, married his wife, Mary Webster, who was the daughter of an Upper Peninsula, although it wasn't the Upper Peninsula of Michigan then, Native American missionary, and settled here, became a very prominent citizen. Over the years, he and Mary prospered, and at one point offered to the city of Grand Rapids a little over 40 acres as a park for the city, and the offer was initially turned down because the park was not located within the city limits. Through the intervention of the intervention of Thomas Gilbert, who is buried over here. You remember, Gilbert was instrumental in the establishment of this cemetery. Through the intervention of Gilbert, Gilbert persuaded the city fathers that this was a gift that should not be walked away from. The city accepted it, and it is now the nucleus of the grandest park in Grand Rapids.